Hello, everybody. It's me, Blake Josh. Today, we will be doing the reaction to the first episode of Fixin' Ruby. We're catching up there, despite real life and such for myself. So, let's get into it.
Stain the sky with a selfish mark. Eclipse the sun, left us in the dark.
I was trying to bypass the opening, sorry.
They can bend the rules till the last one breaks. But the catalyst, the will to exist, will find their way.
Let's go!
Episode 4 opens inside of a weapons locker in pitch darkness, with only Ironwood's voice. Your evaluation objective is to secure the central chamber of the mining complex. Light appears around as the locker is opened, revealing neatly stacked ammo boxes. Ruby's hand reaches inside and pulls out one of the cases, setting it down on a bench in the armory and reloading her empty magazines. You will only be allotted resources to replace necessary utilities. We get scattered shots of Weiss reloading Mir and Naster's dust chambers, Nora resupplying herself with grenades, and Yang efficiently loading her remaining Ember Celica one-handed. The final shot is Blake replacing the
That is so goofy, though. I mean, like, yeah, she has to do it, but it is goofy. I like that.
ribbon on Shroud and walking towards a door, only to pause and stare at where Wilt and Blush are resting on a nearby bench. Otherwise, you'll be sent in as you are, to truly test your mettle. The next shot
Okay, so this is like a test. That's why the resource limited.
is from inside two different
I'm like, to be honest, ammo and such isn't really and probably an issue for Atlas. But the fact that it's like a true test type of thing, it makes sense.
mantas, one transporting Team Ruby, CL, and Neon, while the other is carrying Junior, Flint, Crow, and Clover. The airship split apart to fly to opposite sides of an approaching mountain. Coming to a low hover, all but Crow and Clover jump out into the snow before different cavernous entrances into the mountain, sealed with large metal doors. Members of Strike Team 32 will be accompanying you as an emergency safety net. If you have to rely on them, you have already failed. At a higher point on the mountain,
Damn.
Crow and Clover are dropped off at a rusted access hatch. They waste no time in breaking it open and dropping down into the long, decrepit maintenance tunnel. The next shot has Crow casually kicking open a door and walking into a room with several monitors, all of which Clover smoothly flicks on. Crow and Clover will act as your
What game is this from? Is this from Fallout?
operations, infiltrating the security center and keeping you up to date. However,
Feels like Fallout.
they will not intervene unless absolutely necessary. Outside, Team Ruby and Team Junior stare at the entrances to the mines, weapons ready, faces drawn in determination. These are the parameters if you wish to graduate from Atlas Academy. Happy hunting. Clover's voice comes over the radio. Team Ruby, Team Junior, you may commence operations. Followed quickly by Crow saying, Good luck, ladies. And Ren. Ruby smiles at the quip as John's voice comes over the radio. Hey!
Yes, I had to go back a bit.
She looks up at the door as CL and Neon walk forward, and she almost immediately turns to Yang. Yang, you're up. Yang rolls her neck and walks up to the door, past CL, who raises a brow. At the door, Yang taps it gently with her knuckles, listening to the muted timbre of the metal. She nods to herself sagely, before screaming at the top of her lungs and punching the solid metal.
Superman punch! Oh no, she didn't jump that man.
The door's corners are wrenched open by the force, giving a clean entrance into the mines. Yang turns back to the crew with a cheeky
I'm in the works.
thumbs up. Team Ruby are clearly proud of Yang's work here. Neon whistles in amazement. Wow, you should lose arms more often. Yang's
Strangest words of the coach I've ever heard. The exact expression. She's like, what the fuck did you just say?
smile flattens out when the joke doesn't quite land, but it's quickly forgotten when the shocked CL comments, That's one way of getting in. The rest of Ruby has already started to slip through the entrance, but Weiss lags behind to ask, What would you have recommended? CL pointedly
I figured they had a pass thing.
raises her scroll, which is displaying Access Pass in big, bold letters on the screen. Blake, from just beyond the door, narrows her brows. We're not supposed to rely on you, remember? Which catches CL by
Oh yeah, that is true.
surprise. Ciel straightens up and folds her hands behind her
Well, they can always put in another door, I guess. It'll just take a while.
back to follow. Astute. Carry on. Neon skates past, ruffling Ciel's beret before passing through the entrance. Once inside, everyone pulls out scrolls to use the flashlight function, but even still, Ruby nods back to Blake. Blake, point. With a nod in return, Blake walks ahead of
Point? She doesn't have laser pointers.
the group, her dominant hand resting on the hilt of Wilt. Yang takes up the rear of the group wordlessly, leaving Ruby and Weiss in the center for support. Ciel and Neon hang far back from the group and all proceed deeper into the mines. There's a brief montage
Oh, gravity that's mine.
of them treading through
Just dawned on me.
mineshaft after mineshaft. As they do, evidence of destruction becomes more and more clear, with broken rail lines, busted support columns, caved-in shafts, and half-melted rail cars. As they pass a depot of damaged carts, Weiss
Half-melted.
narrows her brow, remarking, "There are push carts here? Isn't that a little archaic?" Blake chimes in from the front, surprised.
Well, it depends on the era that they came from. Because, well, no. Yeah, it kind of does. It depends on the technology provided. A rail system would be good as well. But if they were slavers, then yeah, they were making stuff harder on purpose.
Surprisingly casual. The mine is nearly dried up. They probably thought it was cheaper to pay Faunus than automate. Weiss sighs and turns away depressingly.
Oh, you know that.
It's really not. Ruby, listening to the conversation, frowns and changes the topic by turning to Ciel and asking, "So, Penny?" Ciel doesn't respond, keeping her eyes forward. "I'm sorry this is kind of out of nowhere, but thanks for keeping your promise." That gets a very slight reaction out of Ciel, who maintains her stoic face, but does give Ruby the briefest of glances. "There's no need to thank me. Focus on the mission." Ruby waves off
Oh, that's what she meant. I thought she thought that CL was penny there. I don't know. I'm okay. I just got back from work. Busy day.
the comment. "But I want to. I kinda hoped... Well, anyway, Penny's back because of you." Her voice trails off lower and lower, but she slaps her cheeks to break the creeping funk. "Did you two end up becoming friends?" Ciel slows to a stop, trying to keep her stoic facade, but she can't help the fond sigh slipping free, and a warm smile creeping onto her lips. Before the conversation can continue, Blake's voice cuts
She a teddy bear.
through the tunnel. "Hold up! There's rumbling."
In the inside.
"No. Tunneling!" The group stop in place, and they all raise their weapons. Ruby, eyes flickering around the limited light, begins to mumble to herself, running through different details of the area, its history, the environment, the damage they've seen up until this point, before declaring, "Sentinels! Eyes up! They drop from above!" Everyone looks up with their flashlight.
Oh, they're not gonna get known by Gnome Grim? Okay.
It's only for Blake to yell back, "No! Whoa!" There's a scramble to correct their aim, and Ruby looks down to find a melon-sized bug with a skull mask for a face leaping onto her leg and trying to
Are those hounds or parasites?
scuttle up her thigh. Ruby shrieks, "Sulfurfish!" With the floor becoming filled with dozens of sulfurfish, Team Ruby drop into a fight, panicking briefly at the very start. Weiss is quick to shish kebab the Grim on Ruby's leg, revealing burn marks on her knee socks and skirt, and she yells, "Don't let them touch you!" We jump over to Yang, who's already covered in them, but seems largely unharmed by them. Ciel and Neon, who are forming their own little defensive perimeter, stare at her in horror. Yang flares her semblance, and they all burn away.
She's like, She's like, I got fire. What do you got? I can burn everything. Ah.
One more tries to jump on her, and she catches it, flicking it up and down before crushing it in her palm. She shrugs. "I don't know, they're kinda cute." Hearing a noise, she turns to her left and finds a centipedal-like Grim, a sentinel, hanging from the ceiling at face level. After a moment spent staring at each other, Yang panic punches it, yelling, "Less cute! Less cute!" It survives the punch and uses the recoil to flick forward a wad of green goo that coats Yang. She begins to panic, screaming, "Oh no, acid! No, my outfit!"
I mean, that's what you get for not being careful?
is an action set piece around the minecart depot, where Team RWBY is left to scramble at the very beginning and on the back foot, something CL is very neutrally documenting for the record. However, as they each get their footing, RWBY manages to take control of the situation, issuing commands that put her and Blake up against the centipedes and Yang and Weiss against the cluster of sulfurfish. The big finale of the fight finds Weiss freezing the sulfurfish into place for Yang to obliterate in one punch. Meanwhile, after having briefly lost track of Shroud, Blake finally resorts to using Wilt to surprising effect to finish off the last Sentinel. As the Grimm begin to evaporate into dust, leaving only bones, Blake looks down at the red blade with a quizzical expression. Yang walks up beside her, ready to ask her about it, when Crow's voice cuts through the radio.
Good work. No time to catch your breath, though. Keep moving to the main chamber.
Weiss, brushing some of the holes in her dress, remarks dryly, "Oh, Nora is going to love these guys." We cut over to Nora slamming a hammer down onto a sentinel, laughing maniacally as she's splashed with acid. "Oh, I am loving this! Come on, guys! So many more bugs to squish!"
Yes, Nora. Become the exterminator. The only good bug is a dead bug. Oh.
John yells up to her from a defensive position with Ren that is quickly becoming overwhelmed. "Nora, get information!" He doesn't get a moment to continue yelling, screaming like a girl. Off to the side is Flint, leaning on a wall and laughing as his clones use their trumpets to repel the sulfurfish back towards the fray. John points his sword over at Flint angrily. "Stop doing that!" We cut to a scroll receiving a
Well, he does I'm touching him.
message from Clover that says, "Exam is progressing as expected. Significant property damage. As expected." The camera pans up to the smiling Ironwood reading it. He passes the tablet off to Winter, and his face grows more serious as they approach a door at the end of the hallway. 4 guards flank the door, and one of them open it as Ironwood nears. Inside we find a lavish apartment, decorated in hues of green and antique clock decor. Sitting at a coffee table, leaning against one another with the most painfully bored expressions on their face, are Roman and Neo. They each take turns tearing out pages from a notebook, crumpling them into balls and trying to toss them into a wastebasket halfway across the room. Roman is the latest throw, landing in the almost filled basket. Very little enthusiasm in his voice, he says, "Yes, that's 6 for me and 37 for you. I'm catching up." Neo just breathes
Barely.
and flops her head over the back of the couch. Ironwood watches them in mild contempt before approaching and sitting on the couch opposite of them. Roman is warm to greet him. "Jimmy, buddy, it's been so long. How are the kids?"
It doesn't have any.
There's not an ounce of amusement on Ironwood's face. "Ozpin?" Roman shrugs, looking around the room as though he'll magically find Ozpin there, only to come up empty. Steepling his fingers and breathing harshly, Ironwood does his best to level with Roman. "I would very much appreciate his advice. And I would also appreciate your cooperation, Mr. Torchwick." Roman's face drops, leaning forward into the conversation. "You heard, Red. The old man and I are on the outs. I couldn't care less if he doesn't rear his head ever again. And besides, you got your plans, you got your armies, you got it handled. Trust me, his advice is not worth a lien." Ironwood's face grows cross. "Ozpin is a great man. He's protected
here
the
we go.
world for generations." Roman steels his eyes, leaning closer. "He is a sad, old man who's outstayed his welcome. You should be thankful he's not here to screw up your life, too." Squeezing his knuckles in frustration,
hatred.
James replies, "Mr. Torchwick, you don't need any help in that department." Torchwick rolls his eyes, and a thought seems to occur to Ironwood. Ozpin could be a chance for you to turn over a new leaf. There's a flicker of rage on Roman's face. "Do you have any idea how this works?" Very evenly, Ironwood replies, bringing his hands apart and then together as a visual. "It is the process of 2 souls joining to become something greater." Roman shakes his head in disbelief. "How long are you going to keep this farce up? We both know the only person walking out of this room is Ozpin." Ironwood replies flatly, "If that's how you want to look at it." He glances between Roman and Neo before standing and walking towards the door. From the couch, Roman yells, Then why don't you just shoot me and find the next host? The door closes behind Ironwood and he sighs, muttering under his breath, "There's still time." He looks up to Winter, who has been waiting in the hallway. Without a word, he walks down the hall and she follows in step behind him. This content and the rest of the content on Celtic Phoenix is brought to you by the wonderful people supporting the channel through Patreon. For just $1 or more, you can gain access to the Tundra Discord server, where you can interact with me and a whole host of my fellow internet colleagues, such as the other members of Team Frostbite and the Team Jacked podcast. Become a part of our regular bad fanfiction nights that happen every Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by joining our chat and adding your commentary to the reading. You can also join by becoming a member of the Celtic Phoenix YouTube channel, with the additional bonus of gaining access to a bunch of sweet emoticons during every one of our streams, such as the Team Jacked podcast, which airs every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if either of those are too much for you, you can always subscribe to the channel, enable alerts, like this video, and share it around to all your friends. Thank you all so much for watching, and we now return you to your regularly scheduled fixing.
I mean, I tried to go to them, but because of life, I really haven't been able to. Also, if you're liking the reaction so far, like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. But let's go.
We cut back inside the security room with Clover and Crow, watching the two teams progress forward on their monitors. Clover nods in appreciation. These kids are doing pretty good. Rough start, but they've hit a stride. Crow is watching the monitors intently, swapping between them quickly as the teams progress. Not surprised. They've seen a lot more than most graduates have. Clover nods again, but pauses, frowning as he watches them. So, what makes them so special? I mean, your nieces, yeah, I kinda get that, but the rest of them? Why let them in? Crow glances back at him quickly before continuing his monitoring. Well, they figured out a lot themselves already, they were just missing some details. So, when I thought I wasn't gonna make it, I decided to put a little trust in them. Clover smirks and shakes his head. We're huntsmen.
Ooh, romance build up? Since they had a thing for each other, or at least a bromance?
Gonna drop dead tomorrow. Crow replies very honestly. No, I actually almost did. Poison. It was just my luck. Literally. That specific line piques Clover's interest. Care to elaborate? Crow holds up a hand to quiet Clover and presses the radio in his ear. Ruby, John, you're getting closer to the main chamber. You haven't called a weapons check on your teams. There's still active dust veins. Watch your fire or this mountain will become a crater. Ruby and John both reply crispy.
Roger!
Crow leans
I wonder what filter they used for that.
back in his seat and marks down on his scroll while Clover keeps watching him. It takes a moment as a number of subtle expressions change on Crow's face before he finally says, Probably best you knew anyway. I've got actual bad luck. It's my semblance. Still forming his thoughts, he continues. It doesn't just stick to me either, so... sorry. Clover's face splits into a rapturous laugh, and Crow is quick to glare at him. Before Crow can comment, Clover waves it off. No, you got me wrong. It's literally your lucky day. Crow stares at Clover's grin, wiping away a tear. My semblance is good fortune. Clover's words dawn on him, leaving him a little awestruck. He slides back in his seat. No shit. Clover winks. Never lost a card game in my life.
They're going for it. They're going for the romance.
In fact, there was this one time with Winter that... His words are cut off as one of the monitors goes black. Crow frowns and leans forward. We've lost one of the feeds in the main chamber. Clover leans forward as well and squints at the screen, tapping it. We can see small gaps in the darkness that briefly blink through, and his eyes harden. No. They're swarming. The shot pulls back and more of the cameras begin to black out. Clover is standing in a split second, hand on his earpiece. Crow is beside him as they walk out the door. We cut to Team RWBY, CL, and Neon, the former having just dispatched another group of Grimm. The girls are scuffed up, but otherwise seem to be in good spirits, confident and still able-bodied. Blake, with her comparatively untouched oil-skinned jacket, shakes blackened dust off Shroud. These sulfurfish are just annoying. RWBY commiserates, her boot dissolved down to the ankle. Yeah, there. She's cut off as Clover's voice comes through their earpieces.
Teams RWBY and Junior, you are to leave the caverns immediately and evac on the Mantas. Strike Team 32, you're up. They're swarming. This is no longer an evaluation mission.
Almost like a light switch,
God damn.
Ciel and Neon confirm and nod to each other. Neon turns to Team RWBY. You guys get out of here, it's going to be too dangerous for you. Yang looks at them, baffled. What are you talking about? We've been handling swarms of them just fine. Ciel shakes her head and pulls out her pistols. Your orders are to withdraw. Ciel and Neon turn and take off down the main shaft, and RWBY is just left confused. I guess? The four watch them round a corner. After a pause, Weiss asks, We're ignoring that, right? Yang gives a playful shrug. No, yeah, this totally isn't part of the test. Clearly walking down the hall after the two.
Yeah.
With a smile, the other three are quick to follow. We shift over to Flint, having just gotten the order himself. He turns to John, Ren, and Nora, who are all knee-deep in sentinels, telling them, Get yourselves safe. John bats aside a sulfurfish and looks at him, flabbergasted as he leaves. Help us, maybe? Flint squints at them before continuing on his way. You guys got it handled. Behind the I'm so done with this John, Nora cackles, slamming her hammer down into another batch of sulfurfish. That only means more for me! We follow Flint into the central chamber of the mines, a large space clearly carved by human hands thanks to the sheared, blocky stone walls, tiers, and pillars. Discarded, rusting mining equipment is scattered around the area, the largest two being an excavator on the lowest level and a massive crane higher up on the tiers of rock. Both the floor and the ceiling of the cavern are embedded with large, multicolored crystalline chunks of dust, giving the room an unearthly mixture of glowing
I didn't
colors.
realize how high it was.
Flint's tunnel empties out onto the highest carved tier that's walkable, and down below we find Neon and Ciel engaging with swarms of Grimm that are digging their way out of the rock along the walls and ceiling. Neon has retained much of the same tactics and equipment we saw back during the Vital Festival,
I see. So they made it all the way down there.
relying on her vibrant dust-powered nunchaku for offense and speed for defense, with the only major change being her skates. They can now transform between skates and blades, with various dust effects that allow her to accomplish a number of different feats, such as skating different terrains or even sticking to walls and ceilings for a limited time, provided
Action monkey!
she keeps up the momentum. Ciel, by contrast, has upgraded herself to a set of dual machine pistols, though unconventionally, both are based on railguns, using magnets instead of combustible ammunition. The minute he calls out his arrival, Ciel is quick to get a plan rolling between them. She orders Flint to spread out along the top rim of the chamber and uses wide area of effect to force the Grimm crawling along the walls down onto the floor of the central chamber. He does so immediately, calling upon his semblance. 3 clones of him spread out, a new evolution of his ability where they can actually act independently of him. Further
Ooh, a nice upgrade. That actually would be someone's upgrade, like for real.
emphasizing this, his trumpet has been modified into a transforming weapon, able to change into a horn, a trombone, and a sousaphone to further vary his attacks and tactics. With the Grimm being forced off the walls, Neon is sent forward to corral the Grimm into a specific corner.
Oh my gosh, she's literally giving the Grimm the taste of the actual rainbow.
The room, the one directly under the crane, while Ciel hangs back to eliminate stray Grimm with controlled bursts of fire. It's clearly a stressful situation for them, but they're managing to maintain a modicum of control. That is, however, until one of the sulfurfish leaps at Neon, mouth open, exposing a chunk of dirty green dust lodged in its throat from when it had been burrowing. When its jaw snaps closed, the force activates the dust, obliterating the Grimm and sending out a wave of air that takes Neon off balance. Having been skating on the wall, she's knocked free, falling just under another Grimm that also explodes. She manages to land on
Oh, the combusting. They'll detonate en masse.
feet, skidding into a fresh skate, and calls out the exploding Grimm to Ciel. Ciel begins to watch her fire more carefully, and when she sees a glint of dust among the Grimm she's firing on, she has to hesitate, as it's skittering over an exposed vein of dust. Grimacing, she's forced to duck away and carve around the crystal with her automatic fire. The dust crystal inside clatters to the ground inertly. She's given no time to respond as another sulfurfish lunges at her, doing much the same as the first dust-clogged Grimm and self-destructing, sending a fireball her way.
The Pokemon.
Ciel stays calm, however, and she's beginning to move when a blur of red swoops in and scoops her out of the way of the flames. Yang appears in her place, tanking the brunt of the explosion and almost absorbing it as if the flames were clinging to her hair. RWBY comes to a stop beside Ciel, pulling Crescent Rose from her back. Ciel turns to her furious. You were supposed to leave! RWBY
Well, that's a good thing they didn't.
waves a dismissive hand. You look like you could use the help! She glances to where Neon is now struggling and then looks back to RWBY. For the record, I didn't. CL turns away and resumes targeting the Grim, chasing Neon as she speaks back. If you're
The record you did.
going to be here, you'll help. If you die or get reprimanded, that's not on us. You see that crane? Ruby follows CL's upward nod, and CL doesn't wait for a response. I'm going to drop it on them. Yang stretches her arm excitedly. Ooh, nice! I was in the mood for some property damage! Prompting CL to hiss, this isn't a game, Xiaolong! Ruby cuts down on
I mean, it is a game depending on how you look at it.
any response, her eyes darting around them to form her own plan as she affirms, Don't worry, we'll cover you. She looks to her team. Yang, Blake, get that crane ready, wait for our mark. Weiss, we'll help down here. Ruby leaps forward into the battle, but Weiss lags behind, turning to Blake and Yang to ask, Do you two need a... What she finds is Blake wrapping her ribbon around the hilt of Wilt, rushing towards Yang, and firing the blade out of flush. Wilt embeds itself in the wall, and Blake smoothly scoops up the waiting Yang, swinging them both into the air as they begin their ascent. Lift? Weiss finishes, watching them, unsure how to feel. She flinches out
Maybe complex. That's about it.
of the way when she hears Ruby call her name and dives into the brawl herself. What we get following this is some classic RWBY action, with Ruby, Weiss, and CL managing the Grim on the lower levels, while Flint, Blake, and Yang handle the upper levels, and work to dislodge the crane. Under CL's updated orders, Neon drifts between the two theaters of combat to focus on destroying the Grim with dust in their mouths, while offering support to whoever needs it at the time. The most notable instance of this is when Yang is trying to upend the crane all her own. Even with the support struts cut, she's struggling to lift it with only one arm, while Blake keeps her back covered from Grim attack. Neon slides in and asks what the problem is, irritating Yang, who scolds her, Either do something or leave, cat! Neon frowns at Yang's blunt call-out. Now you're sounding like CL. Yang, still struggling, is about to respond when
Meow.
Neon twirls around her and drops to the ground while deactivating her skates. Jamming her feet under the lip that Yang is trying to lift, Neon uses her legs to push, grousing out, "You gotta lift with your knees!" Their combined strength finally gets it to budge, just in time for Ruby and CL to give the order to make it drop. The heavy machinery falls, and Ruby speeds out of the way at the last minute as it smashes down onto the
Property damage.
massive Grim, destroying a plurality of the creatures. A wave of relief ripples through the group that they only have to deal with the stragglers, but a groan from the middle prevents that from sinking in. The remaining sulfurfish scurry over the metal, their steps superheated as they go. They meet in the middle where a growing hole is being burned into the chassis, and there's a brief silence as the last one crawls inside. A moment later, bursting
boy.
out of the machine is an amalgamation of sulfurfish joined together into a singular tubular mass, headed by an almost draconic snout. The smaller Grim have fused into a sulfur worm. Through the narrow
Oh god. They can transform. They can fuse.
seams of the individual fish, glimmers of colored dust can be seen poking out, which Ruby and CL are both quick to notice. The two teams stare at it for a beat, somewhat horrified by this development, before the creature roars and begins to thrash around them. They're put on
Reminds me of that one movie with like the worm thingies from I think it was called Tremor, the series.
the back foot, the massive creature is scarily fast, lashing out with every inch of its body to strike at anyone nearby. As it does, it flings superheated goo from its joints, and the occasional dust crystal spills out, which our team have to scramble to catch before they impact any of the dust veins that line the cavern. As they're still scrambling, Clover's voice comes over the radios.
Come on, 32, you've seen worse than this.
Up on the highest tier of the chamber, Clover is casually strolling around the lip, finger pressed to his earpiece as Crow follows behind while protecting the unconcerned Clover. Clover walks up to the original Flint and says, "You know, I hear the acoustics are good this time of year." Flint is confused and turns to ask, "This time of year?" before Clover casually kicks him off the ledge. Conveniently, Flint lands roughly, but safely, on a slope made of sand, his clones all zipping back into him as he loses his concentration. Clover continues to speak through his
He's like, get in there.
earpiece. "Neon, Flint needs a lift around the cavern. A good song will shake that beast apart. CL, find a way to pin that thing in the center. Team RWBY, since you're tagging along, why not join the ensemble?" There is little argument from the two teams, even CL who accepts the new orders instantly, and they get to work. Neon sets about picking up Flint like a sack of potatoes and starts to move, listening to his instructions where he needs to set down a clone. Meanwhile, CL and Team RWBY do their best to distract and corral the sulfur worm, either evading it like matadors or using clever tactics to hold it in place.
Dark Soul.
There's a notable moment where Yang actually catches the molten jaws of the creature between one leg and her arm, while Ciel lines up the excavator to drill into the side of the beast, though that only lasts so long as the superheated goo melts through the metal. Neon, meanwhile, only manages to make it to one stop before the worm's flailing separates her and Flint. Flint, however, is caught by Clover's fishing rod thing. It's a complicated weapon. We changed it. It's more complicated now. It's also a ring blade, but you know, it's not that hard to understand, I hope.
So a whip, a fishing rod, and the thing that you mentioned. No, not really.
Anyway, Buddy buoys Flint
Ring blades are cool.
just long enough for Blake to swing in and pick her up where Neon left off, moving him into position. She gets to two spots, but is thrown off when chunks of dust are flung by the worm in their direction, forcing the two to catch them instead. Ruby picks up Flint for the last stretch, helped along by Weiss forming a barrier of rock with the dust
Wait, did I like... Oh, no, okay.
between them and the worm.
I thought I
With
missed
Flint in
something.
place, he and his quartet take only a comedic moment to check if they're all in tune before belting out a perfect harmony. The cavern begins to vibrate with a combined sonic energy, the dust crystals in the walls singing in resonance. Everyone is paralyzed by the sound, holding hands to their ears. Blake especially is hunched over in pain. Weiss, noticing the crystals in
The chimes.
the walls shimmering, asks, "Is this even safe?" To which
I mean, chime sounds.
Neon screams back, "Probably not!" In the center, well managed, the Sulfur Grim vibrates in time with the cavern, shuddering more and more. Its form becomes loose as the note is held. Eventually, the sulfur fish that comprise it peel away before dissolving in the sound, a cascade effect that starts at the snout and ends at the tail. After only a few seconds, the Grim is obliterated, leaving just black Grim ashen bones, and several dust crystals that quickly start to rain to the ground. Everyone uncurls and rushes about
Run,
trying to catch the falling crystals. Almost all the crystals are caught, but the last few slip through. Crow and Clover swoop in at the end, but one more bounces off a rock face towards a nearby dust vein. Everyone stares at the crystal in panic before it's caught by Yang with her one hand. There's a beat as everyone continues to stare before sighing in relief. Yang frowns at them. "What? You guys thought I would drop it?" As she shrugs, it slips from her hands. Whoops! We cut to outside of the mine where we hear everyone yelling, "Yang!" before she laughs. Psych! Come on, guys, I'm better than that. Cut to black, end of episode.
So crystals are very fragile. Okay, that was a nice little nifty one, and a nice like concept to show like Grimm able to fuse together into one. I did like that concept with the Grimm, very nice. Sulfur fish was very nice idea for a new type of Grimm. Well, in my opinion, at least. It was a pretty. I can't speak. It was a pretty good episode, in my opinion. Although I didn't know that the dust crystals were that fragile. Like I know there's some crystals that are, like I know crystals can be fragile, but some not so fragile. So instant contact would blow up. Okay. I mean, I guess it makes sense if it's a vein, but no. How would that the dust crystal touching the vein make it go explode? Is the crystal, like, is it liquidy? Is like I forget how crystal veins normally work. If they're like liquid or something. If it was liquid, okay, I can understand the kaboomin. But otherwise, no, not really. But I don't know that much about crystal veins. But anyway, if you like this reaction, like, comment, subscribe, and ring the bell if you don't mind. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.